Hi, I'm Greg Kuhn. Today I'm reading from my popular book, Why Quantum Physicists Create More Abundance. Who among us hasn't been entranced by the promises made by the law of attraction? I assume you have, considering you're reading this book. Me too. To hear that you can attract the things you desire into your life is an amazing premise, and it most likely jibes with your intuition about how life works. After all, our culture is replete with homilies, parables, and metaphors that teach and reinforce the idea that we are the source of our material experiences. When you realize there is nothing lacking, the whole world belongs to you. You reap what you sow. What we continually think about eventually will manifest in our lives. Be careful what you wish for. You just might get it. What comes around goes around. You get what you give. Treat others as you would have them treat you. The heart that gives gathers. Whatever your mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. Who wouldn't want to wave a magic wand and make her desires manifest? Who wouldn't want a personal genie to grant her wishes? And since the law of attraction more or less proposes these possibilities, who wouldn't be interested in using it to achieve her dreams and desires? Yet for so many, using the law of attraction to fulfill their dreams and desires remains as elusive as those dreams and desires themselves. I'm always hearing from readers who feel they must be doing something wrong, or more commonly that the law of attraction lacks a clear set of instructions for its full and proper utilization. I empathize with these frustrations, so I have created this book to show you that the law of attraction is very real and available to you right now. The law of attraction is not mystical or esoteric. Through the incredible modern science of quantum physics, we now understand just how our material world is created. And guess what? Quantum physics shows us that you create your material world, just as the law of attraction promises. I hope that, as you learn what quantum physics has to say about how you create your material world, your inspiration and motivation to use the law of attraction is bolstered and fortified. I believe you will find that inspiration here, and be able to finally use the law of attraction just as you always hoped you'd be able to. In this book, I will remove the mysterious veil from the law of attraction and teach you, in plain, simple, everyday language, how you are creating your material world right now. It has been my experience, and an experience shared by thousands of readers, that once you understand the science of deliberate creation, your use of the law of attraction is injected with rocket fuel. And as you are about to learn, quantum physics releases that elusive genie you've always been searching for and allows you to begin aligning your material world with your desires as you've always hoped. Quantum physics is the most accurate and reliable body of science ever created. Its accuracy tests to hundredths of a decimal point. Famous physicist and author Brian Greene tells us that it is difficult to imagine we will ever come any closer to understanding precisely how our universe operates than through quantum physics. The story of quantum physics starts with the first scientific revolution, which gave the world an immense set of rules describing how the universe works, and finally resolved most of the mysteries of it, or so we thought. The science created by the first scientific revolution came to be known as classical physics. The first scientific revolution began in the 16th century and featured such names as Galileo, Kepler, Copernicus, and Newton. We're all familiar with today's one-name-only stars like Madonna, Bono, and Oprah. Well, these men were some of the original stars with one-name-only status. So immense were the discoveries these men made during the first scientific revolution that we still learn about them in our high school science classes. In fact, by the end of the 19th century, most scientists believed that the scientific revolution had everything figured out. In 1875, for example, when famous physicist Max Planck was deciding on a discipline of study, he was liberally encouraged to go into mathematics because, quote, all the interesting work in physics has been done. The first scientific revolution was so powerful it ultimately influenced every aspect of the industrialized Western world. The philosophers, sociologists, psychologists, physicians, politicians, artists, writers, and other visionaries of modern Western society used the classical physics of the first scientific revolution to create and construct everything we know about our social, organizational, and personal paradigms. If you live in an industrialized Western country, you live in a society that bases almost all its knowledge of the material world and how we operate within it upon classical physics. Consider what life was like prior to the first scientific revolution. People believed, among other things, that the earth was stationary and the sun revolved around it. A bizarre idea by today's standards. They believed that your blood didn't circulate through your body, that all matter was made of one of four elements: fire, water, earth, or air, and that the best way to ward off colds was to wrap urine-soaked hose around their necks. I could go on, listing more ideas that make Renaissance-era humans seem like cavemen when compared to modern man. And if you think those beliefs were held only by the common, uneducated people, think again. Even the select educated few believed that anything studied outside of law, theology, medicine, or the arts was magic, and that academic studies of one of those four fields should involve observation alone. Renaissance-era thinkers believed that a real scientist followed Aristotle's method of inductive reasoning and never conducted experiments. It all sounds quite crazy by our modern standards, doesn't it? You certainly don't have to be a scientist to know all those beliefs and practices are way off the mark. The average Joe off the street in the 21st century laughs at all these ridiculous notions. But the reason we laugh is not because we're inherently smarter than our Renaissance-era ancestors. We're definitely much better educated, but we're not born with bigger and better brains than our predecessors. We know those ideas are off base because of the paradigm changes that occurred after the first scientific revolution. It is hard for us to imagine what difficulty and courage it would have taken the average European to digest and believe the earth-shattering discoveries coming from the first scientific revolution. Even though these findings were true and could be proven through experimentation and mathematical formulas, early adopters risked their very lives in latching on to these beliefs. The science of the first scientific revolution, classical physics, did eventually change the Western world's paradigms, though. In classical physics, the universe, or any material object in it, is seen as a huge machine with a set of intricately interacting parts like the inside of an old-fashioned clock. Each part of this machine has only a few simple properties and movements that are determined by two things: the part's mass and the forces acting upon the part. Classical physics worked perfectly until 1887, that is. That year, Albert Michelson and Edward Morley conducted an experiment to calculate the speed at which the Earth traveled through space, or the universal ether, as it was called at the time. Classical physics told them that since half the year the Earth was moving toward the Sun, and the other half it was moving away, the speed of the Sun's rays should have varied accordingly with respect to the position of the observer as he traveled closer and further away. Michelson and Morley spent a full year taking measurements, and the speed they calculated that the Earth was traveling was 0 miles per hour, which of course couldn't have been true. Houston, we have a problem. The Michelson and Morley experiment is now referred to as the most famous failed experiment of all time because it ushered into existence the science of quantum physics and the start of the second scientific revolution. Scientists wanting to explain the results of those experiments, or that experiment, discovered that classical physics could not be applied accurately to those parts of our universe that can't be seen with the naked eye. And you may not know all about this revolution yet, but that's only because the great thinkers of the 21st century have only begun to apply its discoveries to every aspect of our culture, as was done earlier by Locke, Smith, Marx, Darwin, Freud, Taylor, etc. after the first scientific revolution. But make no mistake, similar paradigm changes are coming. Classical physics is still an accurate and appropriate science to use with the material world that's visible with the naked eye. But when we examine the very tiny and the very large world, we need a different science to understand its properties. That science is quantum physics, and it has changed almost all the rules. Quantum physics is strange and bizarre in that it violates our long-held beliefs about how the world functions. So it's tempting to dismiss it as nonsense, but dismiss it at your peril, because quantum physics has proven to be one of the most successful physical theories ever created. The basic features of quantum physics are: 1. Living matter, or material reality, is made up of organic or unified wholes that are often greater than the sum of their parts. This concept is called holism, and it is the polar opposite of the machine metaphor of classical physics. 2. There is not necessarily a relationship between cause and effect. Action is not always caused by another force exerting itself. 3. The observer and the observed cannot be separated. The observer's observation and expectations become, literally, a part of what is being observed. In fact, the observer and the observed may be said to be two different perspectives of the same thing. 4. Linear systems are not linear. They are equations whose effects are not proportional to their causes. There is a lack of logical sequence, correlation, and cohesion found in the universe where we once thought that everything was neatly and logically ordered. Don't quite know how to make sense of this information? You're not alone. I can't yet give you a list of household names who've created new paradigms from the concepts of quantum physics. That is because the second scientific revolution is only a century or so old, and the findings from it have not yet permeated our culture in the manner that classical physics had. But they will. Books such as those in my Why Quantum Physicists series are contributing to a change in belief systems that reflect this new, more accurate picture of our world. Because of quantum physics, our understanding of societal, cultural, social, and personal structures, rules, and dynamics are already changing. 20th century physicists such as Max Planck, Niels Bohr, Werner Heisenberg, Erwin Schrödinger, and Albert Einstein have uncovered truths about our world just as paradigm-shattering as those of Copernicus, Galileo, Kepler, and Newton before them. We now understand that our universe is fundamentally different than we ever imagined, and can prove this through quantum experiments and formulas. As you learn about the concepts of quantum physics, it can be challenging not to dismiss them because they are so radically different from what you have always known. But bear in mind that such dismissals will one day be seen in the same light as people who refuse to believe the world was round. And you're no flat earther, are you? Hi, this is Greg Kuhn. Today I'm reading from my popular book, Why Quantum Physicists Create More Abundance. This is Chapter 2, How You Create Your Reality. An old and time-tested quantum physics experiment shows us how our material world is created. This experiment is so famous, in fact, that Nobel Prize-winning physicist Richard Feynman called it the only thing you need to know about quantum physics. I'm referring to the double-slit experiment, which explains much of the science of the law of attraction in precise and vivid detail. The double-slit experiment continues to challenge quantum physicists today. You'll soon see why it holds such mystery and beauty for them, and also why it teaches you everything you need to know about the very real science of creating reality. Here is the double-slit experiment in a nutshell. A physicist places a particle cannon in a stimulus-free chamber that is aimed at a wall with two slits in it. The particle cannon fires particles, electrons. Behind the first wall is a second wall, on which is recorded the electrons' final landing spots, after they pass through the two slits. The cannon fires electrons at the first wall like a machine gun, shooting electrons in a rapid stream. If a machine gun were fired at a wall with two slits, you would expect that the bullets would produce a pattern of bullet holes on the second wall corresponding to the diameters of the two slits on the first wall. In other words, it's logical to assume that the two bullets would form an outline of the two slits on the second wall. You would be correct from a classical physics perspective to expect the exact same results from the electron cannon as you would the machine gun. But that is not what happens in the double slit experiment. The electrons do not form an outline of the two slits on the second wall. Instead, the electrons form wave patterns, making impressions all over the second wall. Classical physics would cause you to expect some of the electrons in the double slit experiment to hit the first wall and not make it through the two slits. But since most of the electrons do make it through one of the two slits and land on the second wall, they should form two roughly rectangular patterns, a slightly larger outline of each slit. But they don't. The electrons form waves on the second wall. It's as if the electrons change from particles into waves after they pass through the two slits in the first wall. How do they do that? You'll find that answer to this question solves the mystery of creating reality. How could the electrons, shot out of a particle cannon in a stimulus-free environment, land all across the second wall in wave patterns? To answer this question, physicists arrange a photon emitter to fire one photon at each electron as it travels out of the particle cannon toward the two slits. The interaction between the photon and the electron changes the results to what classical physics would lead you to expect. When an electron collides with a photon before passing through the two slits, the electron hits the second wall in the logical pattern you thought you'd see the first time. The electrons behave as you expect, forming two roughly rectangular patterns, a slightly larger outline of each slit. Here is why the double slit experiment dispels the mystery behind the science of creating reality. The experiment shows us that electrons exist as both a wave and a particle simultaneously until they are observed. Until they are observed, electrons are neither wave nor particle. They merely represent the potential to be either one. Prior to observation, the electrons are neither a wave nor a particle. They are literally both at the same time. When the electron struck or interacted with the photon was observed, and thus took the form it was expected to take. Electrons, the building blocks of all matter, have no pre-existing state of being. Electrons don't exist as a wave or a particle when they're not being observed. When electrons aren't being observed, they exist in a state of pure potential to be either one. Your observation manifests the electron. You literally create reality. And this experiment has been done over and over, always with the same results. Electrons are the basic building blocks of all matter. The stuff that forms every material object in our universe has no pre-existing state. Matter is not manifested until it is observed. As strange as this sounds, you cannot say that electrons are particles that sometimes become waves, nor vice versa. Electrons are everything and nothing, wave and particle, at the same time, until you or something else observes them and or interacts with them. We've all heard the old metaphysical question: if a tree falls in the forest and no one is there, does it make a sound? The double slit experiment shows us that if no one is there, there is no forest. And the double slit experiment goes even further. It shows us that it's not just the observation that manifests the electron, it's the expectation the observer holds. Through your observation, and more importantly, your expectations, you are creating the form matter takes. You are creating your reality every day through your observation of it. It's how the universe operates, and you couldn't stop it if you tried. If you're interested in the law of attraction, you've probably intuitively known that your expectations create your reality. Now, you have scientific proof. Hi, this is Greg Kuhn. Today I'll be reading from my popular book, Why Quantum Physicists Create More Abundance. This is Chapter 3, Combining the How and the Why of the Law of Attraction. Ready for some of the Law of Attraction's finishing scientific touches? Unlike the previous chapter, there is not one single experiment or scientist referenced here. Instead, I will cull various facts we've learned about our universe during the second scientific revolution of quantum physics. Although some of what you're about to read sounds like New Age philosophy or mysticism, make no mistake. This is all real, hard, verifiable science. Just like the confidence you have in the law of gravity. You know that when you jump up, you won't keep floating up, up, up into the stratosphere. You may soon have that same confidence in the science of the law of attraction. Every material object in our universe is formed from the quantum field. The quantum field is what physicists have named the measurable quantum soup from which you and everything else in our physical world are created. The quantum field is an invisible field of energy that represents all possibilities. It is everything and nothing all at once, and it holds the potential to become anything and everything. You see, every material object in our universe is comprised of the same four basic elements: hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and carbon. The only reason there are different material objects, i.e., your car is different from a candle, is that those four basic elements are combined differently and are vibrating with different energy. More about energy vibration shortly. It is important for you to understand that it is just as simple for the quantum field to create a human being as it is a pebble. To the quantum field, there is no difference. It is just as simple for the quantum field to create a $1,000 bill as it is for the quantum field to create a penny. The only difference between creating a $1,000 bill and a penny is the combination of those four basic elements and the speed at which their energy is vibrating. Here's another thing you need to know about your creation of the material world. Every material object in the universe is nothing more than vibrating energy. For example, did you know that the energy inside of you right now is the equivalent of 30 atom bombs? You and everything else in the physical world are just a glob of powerful, vibrating energy. And just as important, the vibrating energy of material objects is electromagnetic energy. That means the energy making up every material object acts as a magnet, magnetically attracting other like energy vibrations, and in turn being attracted by other like energy vibrations. Matter in our physical world is constantly on the move, flying toward other like energy vibrations as it is attracted to them. Your expectations or subconscious thoughts are electromagnetic energy. In fact, your expectations are some of the strongest energy vibrations in the universe. Imagine holding a tuning fork and walking into the humongous Louisiana Superdome, where every seat contains a tuning fork tuned to its own unique pitch. If you ring your tuning fork, every tuning fork in the Superdome tuned to a like pitch will begin to ring. That is how your thoughts operate in our universe. Any expectation you hold resonates with other like vibrating things. That is not mysticism. That is the law of electromagnetic energy. Except your expectations don't just resonate with like energy vibrations, they also magnetically attract like energy vibrations, or matter, to you. Your expectations are giant supermagnets that attract or create anything matching their energy vibration from the limitless potential of the quantum field. The quantum field can effortlessly create anything at all, and it is your expectations that are commanding the quantum field to create your physical world. That is why many quantum physicists will tell you that there are as many universes as there are observers. It is important to note here that your expectations are not the same thing as your top-of-mind wishes and desires. Your true expectations exist on a subconscious level and arise automatically from your beliefs. This means that changing your expectations involves more than merely practicing positive affirmations or positive thinking. Your beliefs, upon close examination, may not actually be aligned with your desires. For example, you may desire more wealth, but hold deeply ingrained beliefs such as money is the root of all evil, or it is greedy to want more money, or people with lots of money are morally suspect and probably do bad things to get it. And those beliefs, or others like them, will always, without fail, subconsciously create expectations that will trump your conscious desires for more money. In other words, no matter how often you play the lottery, if you have beliefs similar to the ones you just read, your subconscious expectations will command the quantum field to deliver a material reality that matches those beliefs. A law of attraction devotee, therefore, must make certain that she is changing her beliefs to match her desires. This, we now know, is the only certain way to influence the quantum field and intentionally create a more pleasing material reality. The good news is that your beliefs are subjective and can be replaced. The beliefs you currently hold were given to you by trusted sources. Most of your beliefs undoubtedly serve you very well, but in areas where your material reality is not aligned with your desires, your first priority must be to choose new, better feeling beliefs that are aligned with your absent dreams and desires. When you begin to do this, your expectations will naturally and automatically change as well, which will send new commands to the quantum field. To learn more, look Greg Kuhn up on Amazon.com and browse through the many books that I have there. You're also very welcome to stop by my website, www.whyquantumphysicists.com. You'll find a wealth of resources there as well as on Amazon. Hi, this is Greg Kuhn. Today I'm reading from my popular book, Why Quantum Physicists Create More Abundance. This is Chapter 4, More Bizarre Science from the Second Scientific Revolution. The law of attraction can be explained using science. While it is not important for you to become a physicist, the more confidence you have in the science of the law of attraction, the better you'll be at creating deliberately. You'll get more of what you desire. You now know that all matter is simply vibrating energy. You know that your expectations of that vibrating energy manifests its form. You know that your thoughts are things. They are vibrating energy too, and some of the most powerful vibrations in the universe. And you know that like energy vibrations are attracted to more powerful like energy vibrations. But allow me to illustrate just how simple it can be to change your material reality. Did you know that all matter is completely insubstantial? The vibrating electromagnetic energy we call matter is literally as insubstantial as smoke. You can't even touch it, actually. And once you understand just how insubstantial matter really is, you'll find that creating your own reality is not as difficult a leap as it once seemed. You know that everything in the universe is made of atoms. Even the air you're breathing is made of atoms. So, to see how insubstantial matter is, let's blow an atom up to the size of a huge cathedral. Almost the entire mass of an atom is contained in its nucleus. And in our cathedral metaphor, the nucleus of an atom is the size of a fruit fly. in the middle of that huge cathedral. 99.9% of the touchable physical matter of an atom is the size of a fruit fly buzzing around in a giant cathedral. The rest of the atom is just empty space. That's right, 99% of an atom is empty space. This, of course, means that 99% of you is empty space. 99% of your table is empty space. 99% of your cat is empty space. I think you get the idea. Any material object in the universe is 99% empty space. Think of a big cloud of cigar smoke blown out of the smoker's mouth, and you've got an idea of what you and every material object in the universe really are. In fact, matter is so insubstantial that you can't actually touch anything because there's literally nothing there to touch. And even if there was anything to be touched, your hand couldn't touch it anyway because your hand is 99% empty space too. In fact, if someone picked your body apart atom by atom with the world's finest tweezers, all that would be produced would be a small mound of atomic dust you could blow away with a single breath. Naturally, you ask, then why does it feel like I am touching things? You experience touch because the magnetic forces of atoms repel each other when they come in direct contact. What feels like touch is actually the sensation of electromagnetic repulsion as you come within 1 angstrom. That's 1/100 millionth of a centimeter of the atoms making up the other material object. Have you ever had anyone tell you that you're repulsive? Now you can say, of course I am. Without that magnetic repulsion, you'd float right through every material object in the universe, just like a ghost. You're not actually sitting in your chair. You're floating 1/100 millionth of a centimeter above the atoms that make up your chair. And you're not actually touching your Kindle or your iPad. Your hand is coming within 1/10 billionth of a meter from the atoms that make up that mouse in your hand. But atoms get even stranger. You remember the drawings of atoms from your high school science book? They look like mini universes, right? The hard shell of the nucleus, surrounded by the orbiting electrons, circling the nucleus in perfect ellipses. In reality, that image couldn't be further from the truth, because the electrons outside the atom's nucleus pop in and out of existence all the time. Talk about strange. In the atom's world, an electron can not only jump from one orbit to another instantly without actually traversing the distance from one location to another, but it can also appear from nowhere and then disappear again. Physicists believe the electron is actually in another dimension, but they know for certain that at times it isn't there any longer. So if we could actually see it, an atom would look more like a tennis ball shaped fog. The fog would represent an area of probability because electrons could appear anywhere in that fog at any time. The notion that physical objects are substantial pre-existing things is actually a very effective illusion. The quantum field is a swirling, smoky, insubstantial mass of an infinitesimal number of atoms. The physical objects you create are still smoky, insubstantial things, just like the quantum field from which they are brought forth. And since you're commanding which objects will be created from the quantum field, you constantly put the law of attraction into action, scientifically speaking. Hi, this is Greg Kuhn. I'm reading from my popular book, Why Quantum Physicists Create More Abundance. This is Chapter 5, Putting the Science of the Law of Attraction into Action. This book has only touched on the findings from the second scientific revolution culled from quantum physics, but I'm quite confident you've learned enough to keep you busy for quite some time. However, there is still so much more to be discovered. In fact, there are some puzzles so strange and unexplainable that physicists sometimes deal with them by simply ignoring them for the moment. Case in point. In 1997, experiments by physicists from the University of Geneva intended to prove Wolfgang Pauli's 1925 exclusion principle. The exclusion principle says that certain pairs of subatomic particles, even separated by great distances, can instantly know what the other is doing. In the 1997 experiment, physicists sent photons 7 miles apart in opposite directions, yet found that when one photon was jostled, it produced an instantaneous and identical reaction in the other photon, even though it was 7 miles away. It's as if you put a beach ball in Cleveland and another in Warsaw, and when you spun the ball in Cleveland, the ball in Warsaw spun in exactly the same direction at exactly the same speed the instant you did it. We call this entanglement, and only recently have physicists begun to produce further results from studying it. For years, scientists chose to ignore the University of Geneva's experiment because it invalidated Einstein's theory of general relativity, which states that nothing can move faster than light. The University of Geneva proved that information can move faster than light. Information can move instantaneously. There are many conceptual leaps for us to make from quantum physics, and so much information that sounds crazy or at least totally contrary to anything we know. Perhaps the most difficult conceptual leap for us will be letting go of seeing things as either or. Having been raised with classical physics as our paradigm, we are used to a complementary model. Things are either this or that, male or female, hot or cold, large or small, wave or particle, etc. We are comfortable with this notion and can even readily accept that these two polar opposites complement each other. But as you now know, quantum physics asks us to embrace a universe where things aren't this or that. We now have a universe where things are both this and that. All material things at their essence spring forth from a field of unlimited possibility, the quantum field. And it is actually our expectation of what we observe that brings about any concrete materialization. Without our observation and our expectations, matter doesn't materialize. Maybe it will be most difficult for us to embrace the notion that things are not really a sum of their parts as we've always thought. The universe really isn't like a clock, with inner mechanisms working together with the expressed purpose of forming a larger object. The universe and everything in it is actually a system of parts working in complete cooperation for unknown reasons, and each part has individual identities just as important as the larger object they're helping to create. Your body, for example, is not a machine. Your hypothalamus produces unique amino acids associated with the emotions you experience, which are ingested by your cells. Your cells actually become addicted to the amino acids to which they are most often exposed and begin to tell your hypothalamus to produce them. Since your hypothalamus cannot produce the amino acids your cells are asking for without experiencing the emotion associated with them, it, in turn, tells you to experience the emotions necessary to produce the acid. On a daily basis, you are experiencing emotions for the sole reason that your cells are asking for the amino acids your brain produces when you feel those emotions. It turns out that your immune system also produces these amino acids, which suggests that your immune system operates independently from the consciousness of you or your brain. According to preliminary research, your immune system may very well have its own consciousness. I also believe letting go of the notion of the distinct and separate observer will be a difficult one for our culture. The idea that your observations and expectations being part of the data involved in your evaluation is a challenge to accept in our current paradigm. As a professional educator, I am familiar with hearing The kids in my classroom are behaving well or terribly, as if the teacher is separate from what she is observing. Yet in fact, we now know that a teacher's expectations are just as responsible, if not more so, than any classroom management techniques she uses and the students' responses to it. The fact that your expectations, the vibrations of energy you create through your thoughts and feelings, directly influence and or create what you see gives you tremendous power. And as Spider-Man once said, with great power comes great responsibility. And accepting that responsibility is something you're probably not used to in our current paradigm of detached observation. The changes we see as the second scientific revolution is assimilated into our everyday lives will be wonderful for us in the long run. These changes will more accurately reflect the way the world really functions. The more you can embrace the new information, the more you will see your personal life changing for the better, and the less uncomfortable you will be with these new paradigms that will someday be old hat for your children and grandchildren. Because of this information, our understandings of everything from how the human body works to how to govern a nation are already undergoing radical changes. But you can rest assured that although these changes will be unfamiliar and perhaps uncomfortable at first, they will ultimately make you and our society much more powerful influencers of our material reality. The good news is, these changes will bring the way our universe really functions into better understanding. Remember, at one time, people felt very comfortable believing that the world was flat. But as uncomfortable as the new knowledge of a round Earth made people, weren't they better off knowing the truth? And aren't you also better off knowing the truth? I have a friend with a drug problem who got help from a 12-step group. She told me that accepting her powerlessness over her addiction was a Herculean task at first. It wasn't until her sponsor explained that she wasn't really surrendering control over her addiction that my friend was able to change her personal paradigm from a hopeless addict to a recovering addict. It all changed for my friend when she learned that she wasn't actually surrendering control over her addiction. She was surrendering the illusion that she had control over her addiction, because she never had control over it to begin with. And that's the way that paradigm changes from quantum physics will come about. Yes, there is a certain comfort and familiarity in the belief that life happens to us and that we have no control over reality. To believe that people, places, and things are the way they are, and I have no control over them, makes perfect sense to us. Yet, just like my friend's experience, quantum physics is teaching us that we do have power over the people, places, and things in our lives. Our observations and expectations are what create them. And using that power, the law of attraction, doesn't actually require you to do anything radically different, because you've always had that power to begin with. Now you can begin to use your power deliberately. You can learn to shape your reality like a potter molds clay on a clay wheel. First, you can start thinking differently, and then you will see changes in your everyday experiences. It's been said that the truth shall set you free. Of course, it's also been said that first it will piss you off. So don't be overly concerned by your initial reaction to reject this information, to poo-poo it as nonsense. I've been there too. Once you can get past your resistance, you'll experience a whole new world of possibilities that will emerge from this second scientific revolution. An important word of caution. The concepts introduced here are very real, and they work because they are universal law. However, do not make the mistake I did and think that mere positive thinking and positive affirmations give you carte blanche to take any action and make it successful just because you desire it to be so. As I wrote earlier, your underlying beliefs about things are much stronger than any positive thinking you perform. And those beliefs will ultimately continue to manifest themselves despite any veneer of positive thoughts. To play alchemist with the world, which is your birthright, you must first change your beliefs. You desire more money, a loving relationship, a great job, a wonderful home, a fancy car, etc., right? Invest your time in changing your beliefs, and you'll find yourself attracting those very things. In accordance with quantum physics, once your beliefs are aligned with your desires, you cannot fail to attract those things. And that is exactly how the law of attraction can work for you. If you're interested in learning more, please feel free to visit my website, which is located at www.yquantumphysicists.com. You'll find a wealth of information and be able to explore these concepts in even greater detail. Of course, my books, all of them available on Amazon.com, are also wonderful entrees into the world of deliberate creation and quantum physics. Thanks for listening.